Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of the Smart Food Safety Podcast by Provision. I'm Amy Wayne, the Food Safety Content Manager here at Provision, and I'm excited to have Warren Sarafinchan joining me today for a chat about why taking food safety programs digital is such an important option to consider for C-suite and operational leadership throughout the food industry. Warren, thanks so much for taking the time to join me. Could you introduce yourself and say a little bit more about your background for those who might not be familiar with you?
Amy, thanks for having me today. My name's Warren Sarafinchan. Most recently, I was the president and chief executive officer of a very large tree fruit packing organization based in British Columbia. Prior to that, I worked with companies like the Mars Company, Maple Leaf Foods, Labatt Breweries. So, all large organizations that are very focused on delivering quality products.
Fantastic. Like I'd said, it's so great to have you on. So, just to get the ball rolling, let me ask, how were you initially introduced to Provision? How did you first hear about it?
So we had hired a new VP of supply chain, and his background was very heavily focused on food safety. And we looked at our program and said, there's got to be a better way. We had binders and people and filing cabinets. Just, it was such a manual process. So he initially made contact with Provision. I was introduced to them and really thought that the product that they're offering and the technology that they're offering was going to be beneficial for our business.
Yeah, I think everyone in food safety probably understands that tedium of super manual processes, right? So, once you had the option of going digital brought up by this new VP, how did that then turn into implementing the new system? And how soon did you start to see benefits?
Well, we started seeing benefits virtually immediately once the technology was in place. I mean, our processes were so manual that there was a running joke that we just had binders and binders and what Provision did was ultimately streamline our processes, automated our processes, and gave us better insight into our quality management system, and it made a significant difference, very shortly after implementation.
We love to hear it. So, getting into some of the meatier questions now, in your experience, how did you envision the Provision toolset enabling your business to improve? Where did you specifically see the best return on investment?
There was really three areas that we were focused on, where we saw benefits. The first being just the cost benefit, because we were able to redeploy resources because we had automated so much. So we certainly saw cost savings that more than paid for the Provision tools. So that was one. The second one was just risk management. So ultimately, having the Provision tools in place is part of our enterprise risk management plan. We had a much higher degree of confidence that the right things are being done on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And that just protected our products much better than a manual system. Of course, a manual system relies on humans, and there's mistakes made, there's things missed, some things don't get done, people go on vacation, get sick, and so on. So just having the process automated was the second. And then the third, quite frankly, was all about, I mentioned redeployment of resources. What we were able to do was focus the team on more value added tasks rather than just simply documenting. Preparing for audits is another one that, every time there was an audit, it took weeks and weeks and weeks to get ready. And what Provision does is you're basically audit ready every day. So it simplified our business and allowed us to, really focus our folks on higher value added work within the organization.
So, when you were initially looking for a new system to improve, were there any concerns that you had when you were looking at going digital?
Well, I think any anytime you put new technology in, you need to make sure that there's adaptation within your organization so that you don't digitize but still do the same things you were doing before. So, it really came down to, I was comfortable with the numbers. really like the risk management plan, like the simplification of our business. But ultimately, I wanted it was about change management really, and making sure that the organization was up for making the changes. Uh, because of course you need to get new behaviors, new skill sets. But I think that, when I was at Tree Fruits, our team accepted the tools, accepted the new processes, and we move forward.
That's very true. So, one common blocker out there that we hear a lot when it comes to implementing a new technology, such as provision, can be a lack of management buy in or agreement. Do you have any advice for your everyday food safety manager or quality assurance manager who maybe they found provision on their own and they're looking to convince those higher up in the chain that provision is worth it?
Sure. I think oftentimes and I saw it as I became more senior in businesses. Oftentimes, the business cases that come forward are overly technical, and I think if you simplify the business case to say, here's the cost benefit, here's the risk benefit, here's the simplification benefit, this is what it's going to cost. If you just keep it at a business level per se, that makes the world of difference. All the bits and bytes and technical details, it's interesting, but not, when you're looking at a business case and trying to sell a business case to a CEO, you need to keep it at that.
Hear that, food safety managers? Take note. All right, so I know you had mentioned simplicity and ease of use as big factors when you were considering provision. When it comes to introducing team members to the new platform, were there any other specific features or advantages that influenced your end decision?
Well, ultimately, the one other thing I should have mentioned is we consistently heard from our growers that our food safety program was overly complex and needed to be simplified. So for our 300 or so members, it really helped them simplify their business, gave us better insight, and really helped us. I think that was all part of the simplification process, because the harder you make something, the less likely it is that you're going to get compliance. And when you've got 300 different suppliers of fruit, all with varying degree of technical capability, you need to keep it very, very simple.
Absolutely. Speaking specifically to the tree fruit industry, what would you say to those other businesses out there who might be, drowning in paper at the moment and are considering going digital?
I'd say take a total look at what you're paying today and what you'll be paying for in the future. And if you take that holistic view, I think folks will find that the provision technology not only has risk management benefit, but also has a financial payback. And take a hard look at where your resources are spending time, because whether it's a food safety manager, whether it's a production supervisor, the plant manager, everybody's spending time on the food safety program. And just look at the last time you did an audit, and just look at how much time gets spent getting ready for an audit. It's shocking, remarkable. Not only getting ready, but if you have missing documents, or if you have documents that haven't been turned in, or they haven't been filled out correctly, it just adds to the stress of an audit and could have implications for whether or not you pass or fail. So I think when you look at the total effort manually and the total effort with provision, I'm very confident that you'll find that the provision tools are a better option, hands down.
That's some great advice, I think. Speaking of implications, I know that previously you'd shared a story from the industry about a specific time where having the kind of real time access to data that you get through digital documentation could have stopped a recall. Could you share that story with us?
So Amy, I heard of one instance where a packer had some testing that wasn't being done, and that wasn't being picked up through their quality management system. And as a result, there were positive listeria tests that found out after the product had already shipped and was already in stores, and in some cases had already been purchased. So, in this particular instance, what they did, if they would have had provision, that would have been flagged much earlier. And in this particular case, I was talking to the person with this organization who said, they would have caught it same day or the next day, not a month later. So, they spoke very highly of what provision, how it could have helped catch a very serious situation. Because of course, listeria can make people sick or worse. So again, I think, just in talking to this particular individual, I think it just goes back to that enterprise risk management that I mentioned. And you need to manage risk within your business. And I think provision is a critical part of that.
Wow. Thanks so much for sharing that one. It's definitely a precautionary tale, and you kind of have to wonder how many other similar incidents could be prevented if nobody was still stuck on paper or doing their record keeping manually. Unfortunately, though, we're just about out of time here. Could you share any parting thoughts or words of wisdom before we wrap things up?
One final comment I'd make for CEOs or senior leaders that are making the decision to invest in provision. It's easy to deprioritize the investment in a technology like provision and just push it off, push it off, push it off. Enterprise risk or managing your risk, accidents happen, and they're called accidents for a reason. So you don't know when, something happens, and as I mentioned, you end up with a listeriosis contamination or some other type of contamination. And once it's happened, it's too late. So really take a hard look at risk, what your total cost is, and include uh, I think you need to include the fixed cost associated with your food safety team and anybody who's spending time getting ready for audits or for other work that you need to do. And think of how you could redeploy those resources and add more value to your business. And I think when you look at it that way versus the cost to implement the monthly subscription fees, if you get really focused on what the cost of provision is, and it's very reasonably priced, I think if you get really focused there, you may say we can't do it, we don't have time, we don't have the resources to implement. It's not overly difficult to implement, quite frankly. So I think, if you look, for my CEO colleagues, if you look at it holistically, I think you will say we need to make this investment. We need to make it now, particularly as the world of food safety changes and the guidelines become that much stricter. The consequences of failure become that much higher. I think when you look at it, you'll say the provision's the right way to go.
Fantastic. I think that's a great note to end on. Warren, thanks again so much for your time. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. And to all of our listeners, I hope our chat with Warren has been informative. If you have any questions about Provision, or if you'd like to see a demo of the platform in action, I'll encourage you to visit our website at www.provision.io. And there you can see a variety of case studies as well as get in touch with one of our experts. Thank you all again for taking the time to listen, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Goodbye.